Um, well, we've been continuing to work, Ira, obviously, on trying to improve the team and to try to get better, as a team organically from inside. And at the same time realizing that even though we went to the finals last year, and we love our base of young players, that if there was any way that we could sort of fill a couple of spots to help us this year, but also to preserve what we have going on in the future, then which is to have good young solid players and something to build around. And the other thing that you always think about when you're in our position, and I'm talking about Mickey, myself, Andy, Nick, Chet, Adam, is that how do we build our asset base? And so I do think we have a very good team. We added to the team today with Victor and Belly. And, I do want to thank, obviously, KO and Chris, Avery, Mo, those guys, served us well. And if you can add to your asset base and keep your future somewhat intact, which I really didn't want to mess with too much, and add to that, then I think we'd be ahead of the game. And we're going to miss Kelly Olynyk. He's a hell of a player. We think that Belly is, and that's what I'm going to call him, okay? Because I got to get to know him before I start talking about his last name, Belitza, but Nemanja. But I think both of those players, Victor and Belly, can help us, and that Belly is sort of a facsimile of Kelly, but we're going to miss Kelly. And I just want to thank those guys. I want to thank Kelly, and I want to thank Chris and Avery and Mo. But I think we helped ourselves today.
When you look at the situation you're in right now, you bring in a couple of impending free agents, which can turn the offseason in a couple of ways. Were there any discussions with those players about a longer-term role, particularly Victor, and how are these ensuing couple of months going to play out now regarding that and his potential future with
No, there hasn't been any discussion with anybody about anything, in the future from that standpoint. Obviously, we have their bird rights, and I think that's about the most important thing that player wants when he gets traded from that standpoint. But the most important thing is to incorporate both of these players into the present moment right now, and to see how Spo is going to sort of deal with this whole mix of players. We have a lot of depth. We have a lot of shooting. I think you saw that tonight. It was, I'm not happy about, my own coaching instincts come out about, how the game ended tonight, from an officiating standpoint. But anyhow, I don't want to get fined for that. But, but from that standpoint, I do think we have a lot of depth. We have a lot of versatility. I think Spo will have a lot of options to be able to go and be able to not experiment, but use. And so I think we kept everything that we needed in the cupboard to cover our defense and our offense, and in special situations. We got defenders, we got shooters, we got slashers, we got leaders that can make plays. And so now he's got to put all that together now while we make this mad rush to the finish, from that standpoint. But from a future standpoint, we're going to let the future take care of itself in the present moment with the performance of players. And so there's going to be a lot of competition, and, players got to step up and they got to play, and they got to get the job done.
There was a move not made, and we've talked about this in the past, that at some point you say the cost is too high and you move on. We had that sort of at last year's deadline also. You mentioned the Gallinari possibility. So Was the cost simply too much for Kyle Lowry? I mean, that was made clear he was on the market. He was out there. Masai addressed that tonight also. Was there sort of a line in the sand that you felt you had to draw, if not with that move, just in moves in general?
I think there is a line with any move, not to talk specifically about, that player.
Mhm.
I really don't want to get into what the conversations, that we had with a number of teams. There was more than just one team. This has been going on for the last couple of weeks, but I think you have to be very conscious of what you do with your asset base and your youth, and what you have started to build the future of this team around. And this is not about what you're asking me the question about, specifically about one team. I don't want to get into those conversations, but I do believe that we have a lot of very good young players, and you have to be very reluctant in a way to protect that asset base of young players, because we already had a nice combination of veterans. We just needed some more help. And I think Victor Oladipo will give us an entirely different kind of player, than we have on our team. And excuse me, I'm glad nobody's in here, by the way.
No one's watching. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm alone in this whole place. And Victor gives you a slasher and a runner and a quick player as a scorer. He averages 20 a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. We know him really well. And Belly, is a facsimile, somewhat of what Kelly can do. So we protected ourselves there a little bit. And it's really about the future. It's about this season, about what we're going to do. But yeah, I think you have to be conscious of that from that standpoint. So we were in a lot of discussions with a lot of teams. And I know that particular one hypothetical about whatever might have happened up in that area, it just, it didn't happen.
And then last one for me, the buyout deadline is April 9th. There's moves ahead. The Spurs officially waived LaMarcus Aldridge tonight, so he's a name that is out there. Where do you stand with LaMarcus? And is the thought, like all the reporting has been, that he is very high on your radar and that's a possibility? Where does that stand, please?
Well, I think, from tonight until the buyout deadline, I think a lot of these players, whoever gets bought out, are going to have a lot of teams going after them. So, we have to think now about just sort of getting our players in, making sure that these two players pass the physical, and both of them, will be part of the team, and then we'll deal with the possibility of a buyout player. We'll start that process tomorrow.
So you do not have a specific player lined up at the moment for a buyout?
No.
Okay.
Well, we don't.
All right.
Up next, we have Anthony Chen.
Hey, Pat. As Ira said, obviously Victor is going to be a free agent in 3 months. I know you said you guys know him well, but over these next 3 months, now he's in the system, what do you hope to learn about him in the next 3 months? And how do you think he could kind of blend with the games of Bam and Jimmy?
Well, as I said, I think he's a flat out scorer. We have scorers. I think both Bam and Jimmy have proven that they can score the ball, and they can do other things besides just score the ball. Both of them are high IQ players. Both of them are passers, rebounders. They can score. They get to the free throw line, and sometimes you might need a player that is a little bit different than them, or different than the other players that might be supporting them as shooters. So I think Victor brings you the whole package. If you go back and look at his stats and all the things that he did prior, to his injury, the guy can be a catch and shoot, 38, 39%, 3-point shooter, as well as being a slasher and a driver and a cutter and a defender. I just think he could add a tremendous amount to our team as a different kind of player than Jimmy, a different kind of player, obviously, than Bam, because Bam's a big guy, and he's different from Tyler. He's different from Duncan and from Goran, and we're very, very happy to have him. And I think over the next 2 or 3 months, we'll just see what happens. But I think we add a slashing scorer to our team, so we don't have to just always depend on making threes to win games. If Jimmy and Bam maybe are not doing it, you might have another player that can create on his own in a number of facets to help you win.
And then last week, you guys made a move for Trevor, kind of similar to to adding a player like Andre last year, a veteran stretch forward. What do you like about what Trevor brings to this roster?
This goes back to 2004, and I was in Dominguez Hills in Los Angeles. I think I was with Chet, or I could have been with Randy Fund or somebody, but I worked Trevor out. Trevor Ariza out when he was 19 years old. And I remember, talking, about him at that time, about his height and his length and the defensive ability that he had when he was at UCLA. And so we have always, throughout the years, even though he's never come and played for us, we've always had our eye on this player. And Trevor needs another week or 2 weeks of games and getting his legs underneath of him and getting the rhythm. But I think he'll bring, with Andre and with KZ, in particular those three guys, that he will bring this 3-and-D mentality of real length and defensive ability, as he did tonight. He tried his best that he could to play, at 6'8", to play Lillard. And that's not an easy, assignment for a 6'8" guy, so he plays him intelligently. He's very smart. I think he'll make, he'll make his number of shots that he'll have to make. And he'll give us a defensive presence that will help our team and how we like to play defense.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Jason Jackson.
Hey, Coach, as it pertains to
Jax, how you doing, man?
Feeling great. Good to be
Good?
back.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Thank you very much.
You didn't get my rewind in there.
I have tried to figure out how to get your instructions. With that being said, did today feel for you and your basketball ops as hectic as it felt outside, in the sense of the amount of deals that were getting done and obviously the tempo at which they were getting done today?
I didn't feel anything from that standpoint in what's happening outside. While we're tracking everything, we're trying to put together, some deals. Myself and Andy and Adam and Chet, we're all here. Nick and Mickey are on the phone. And Spo, he's got a game day, trying to get ready for tonight's game. And so trying to get everybody, involved in this process of making, what could be franchise, changing moves. We didn't think much about what was being done with other teams and who else was doing whatever. We didn't really get into that. We're just into what we're doing. Since I'm not a social media maven and I never really followed Twitter or Instagram or anything else, I always have people tell me what's going on, but we felt very good, after we were able to make the transaction for both Victor and Belly. So, and I think everybody, was excited for what we did, and, what anybody else did, that's up to them. But that's the way the process works. And so we feel good about what we did. And now we got to go out on the court, bring all this stuff together. Spo's got to get into the lab with all these guys. The players got to get together. We got to get physicals tomorrow, got to get them to New York. And so the process is just really beginning of putting this team together. We're on a 5-game losing streak. I thought tonight would have been an absolutely great win just to feel good about everything that's going on. And, but we'll overcome that from that standpoint. But Jax, what somebody else does, they do. What we do is what we do. And that's where we'll leave it.
Next, we have Barry Jackson.
Hi, Pat. Just wanted your thoughts on how you think year 2 has gone for Tyler and for Duncan as well. It was obviously going to be hard to shoot 44.6% again on threes, but he's expanded his game in some other ways. Just on those two guys' thoughts on how it's gone for each, please.
Well, Barry, I think you're exactly right. He has expanded his game, and I'm talking about Duncan. So he has expanded his game. And, when you're running around the perimeter with your head under the rim where you start, and then you start running around to get open, then you catch a pass and you throw it back to Bam, then you make another cut, then you come off the other side, and you just feel like there's never any room, for you to get a shot. He keeps working, and he keeps working, and this is what's made him a better player. He's making more layups than he's ever made. He's making more great cuts than he's made. Spo will come out of a timeout, not just call a jump shot for him. He'll call a reverse or a back cut or a curl or something, and he'll get a layup. So, yeah, he rebounded the ball very well tonight. When you look at our young guys, especially even with Bam and Duncan, and you saw what Tyler did tonight. He had 29 and he didn't even think about it. So their upside, I think, is so big that you don't know right now. But when you see 29 or 25 or 8 threes or whatever Duncan can do or Tyler can do, you can't let go of those two assets. You just can't, because they could become truly great. They're very, very, very good players right now. And I think they're probably a year or two away from maybe what their early max could be, from a production standpoint. So I'd hate to have that, come back at us, if we were to do something, and try to move them, but we're not going to. And so, from that standpoint, I think, what happened today is that you're going to see Duncan, you're going to see Tyler. Whatever happened to them in the bubble last year, they benefited from. The finals were a little tough for them. The percentages are down somewhat this year for a number of reasons, whatever they are. They can be fixed. Players go through shooting slumps, but it would be very, very hard for Duncan to average 44%, for a long period of time in his career. He's going to have those periods where he'll shoot 50%, or maybe because of the defense, he'll shoot less. But, we're happy with both of them. And the fact that they're both going through somewhat of a shooting slump, they'll come out of it because they work hard.
And up next, we have Will Manso.
Hey, Pat, you opened referencing the finals run last year. How better positioned do you think you are now with the moves today to be in that position to do that again, to beat the Milwaukees, the Brooklyns, and the Phillies of the East?
Well, I don't think it's, wide open. I think you're looking at the top teams in the East and top teams in the West. You can name them, however you want to name them, with, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, from that standpoint, especially in Brooklyn, those 3 teams are looking like they're pretty consistent. But because of how crazy this year has been, it's been 2 seasons in 1 year to me. It's like one big run-on sentence. We started the season last year, and then the season was canceled. Then we sheltered in, and then we had soft openings, and then we went to Orlando, and we're 3-8 in Orlando in those games, and we got into the playoffs, and we played a bunch of clutch games. We got to the finals, and those conditions were those conditions, and everybody had to go through them. And this year are the same conditions. Whatever they are, everybody has to go through them, and you can't make excuses about them. It's hard. It's very hard for everybody in the NBA. It's hard for everybody in the world. It's hard for everybody in Miami. It's hard for you guys. It's just harder, and to be able to just to go about and do what it is you do without thinking about being tested or getting positive tests or negative tests or all these things. And so as much as those teams at the top, can be there, and those teams in the West at the top that can be there, there are teams that are bunched up in the middle like us. I'd watch out for us. I'd watch out for anybody in the West that's bunched up in the middle. And so there's no real clear cut because of all the conditions, I think, that are out there that could change the equation, especially in the playoffs. If something happened from a health, a protocol standpoint, as far as COVID goes. I like their chances.
Up next, we have Ethan Skolnick.
Hey, Pat.
Hi, Ethan.
Hey, the last time you spoke to us, you talked about kind of moving to the next thing. You talked a lot about the next thing.
Mhm.
I was wondering, as you were kind of going through this and kind of how this ended up, obviously with Vic joining Miami, do you see this as the next thing in terms of the way that you were framing it when you spoke to us the last time?
Well, when I used, that phrase, the next thing, that there always is. There always is what's next. And even from what we did today is you'll say, what's next, that'll come this summer, most likely. Or the fall, whenever we get back to doing it in between seasons. But I think the addition of Victor in particular, I'm really excited about the fact that he brings us a different presence. He's not just a shooter. He's a scorer. He's a slasher, as I mentioned. He's a runner. He's quick. He can really defend. There's a lot of good things about him. And so we don't have all of the same. We know what Jimmy does and how unselfish he is. We know what Bam does. We know what our shooters do. We know what Tyler can do. We know what Goran can do. I think Victor brings us a little bit of a different dimension in how he scores. And he's, an ultra quick athlete who can be a triple threat. He can make threes. He can make medium range. He can make pull-ups. He can go to the rim. He's a great free throw shooter. As I mentioned, he's a 25-5 guy. So we'll just see what happens. But he gives us a different dimension. So yes, Ethan, this is the next thing. And then we'll just see what happens at the end of the season. And then, as you always do, is you try to get better and you try to improve and, try to create an asset base. And then you go from there. Winning in a big way will change that. And it will probably force you in a way to stay the same, which is what you want. If you can stay the same with the same team and get to the finals and win championships, then that's what you're always trying to aspire to. And so from that standpoint, we'll just see what this next thing does for us.
All right, and with the last question, we'll go with Josh Moser with WSBN Channel 7.
Hi, Pat. This day, especially for a lot of the younger players and players whose names are on these rumors, social media does play a huge factor to them. And my question to you is just, what do you think about the league not scheduling games on the trade deadline day out of respect for the players and also for a competitive balance for teams that are getting rid of guys and almost half the roster not available tonight for you?
I think they should have the trading deadline in the summertime. So you don't have to go through this. I get neurotic during this time. Spo does. The players all get neurotic. You can't blame them. Really, back in the day prior to social media, when everything is so instantaneous and present moment, like right now, you could talk to your blue in the face about trades and nothing would ever get out. And so the players would just keep playing, even though they knew there was a date. But what happens today is really over the top in the hypotheticalization, if that's even a word, the hypotheticalizing, if that's a word, I don't know, help me. But when there's that much conjecture out there about what might happen, and you know, the creation of trades by people and names pop up left and right, yeah, it has an impact. It really has an impact, I think, on the psyche of players, not as much veterans, but young guys it could. And I hope now that, you know, the deadline's over with and that social media can calm down. They'll never calm down probably, but that's just the way our life is today and what we have to deal with. And so the players, you know, can now move on. They know they're here. They're not going anywhere. And let's put our team together as fast as we can and try to get in sync so we can do something special, if that's a possibility.
All right, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you guys.